3, 2, 1.
The arrest was carried out. The video shows the officers kicking this individual in the head. Is that appropriate force to use at that point?
It's rare and unusual, but if you're confronting somebody who you believe is a terrorist, he's on the floor after you've tasered him, but he's not letting go of the knife. On a very hot day, he's wearing a puffer jacket. He's huddled up, and you're thinking, and he's got a rucksack on, and you're thinking, I think he might have explosives the way he's behaving. That is an extreme situation, and that requires extreme force. And so in that situation, the sort of things they did, I can understand in the heat of the moment and in that fear and that determination to try and neutralise the threat they perceive. That's a reasonable thing for them to do.
You're OK with it?
In most situations, it wouldn't be reasonable, but in that situation, thing for them to do.
You're OK with it?
In most situations, it wouldn't be reasonable, but in that situation, it was reasonable. And I think what I've been pleased to see is the amount of support online from members of the public for the officers.
You're obviously coming for criticism from some quarters, or the officers have from some political quarters, and you've responded to that in quite extraordinary with an open letter to a political leader. Again, is that appropriate for you as the Commissioner to be speaking to a political leader like that about their words?
I'm not getting involved in politics. I'm dealing with operations. I need my officers to have confidence to tackle the most difficult and dangerous individuals. Of course, there's always going to be sort of eccentricity and nonsense online. But if an eminent person steps into operational policing and sort of criticises officers in a way that can undermine their confidence to act, I need to support them to stop a protest happening. In extremis, we can contain and condition protests so that they're only a static event, but you can't get rid of them completely. I am concerned about the effect they have. I think we should recognise some of these big events are quite a broad coalition. You've got people who are just there from a sort of pacifist anti-war perspective through to people with very strong...
Said that she was disappointed to see pro-Palestinian marches go ahead after the attack last night across the country. She said that she thought it was dishonourable. She said people could have just stepped back and given communities a day or two to grieve and process what had happened. Does she have a point, do you think?
No, I think Shabana Mahmood is also being deeply irresponsible. There's a lot of it about. I think ultimately conflating protests against a genocide in Gaza and ultimately weaponising that against an anti-Semitic attack on our streets, a terrorist attack, is deeply irresponsible. And again, democratic, non-violent protest is a cornerstone of our democracy. And I think it's worrying when government are increasingly trying to crush down dissent and again using what is a brutal attack that many of us in the Jewish community, in fact all of us in the Jewish community, are feeling very deeply, to try and use that to point at a protest and say people don't have a right to also speak out against a genocide is both conflating issues, it's incoherent, and it's exactly the opposite of what we need from politicians. We need statesmanship in this moment. We need responsibility. We need people to be sensitive about their language, but also recognise that there is complexity to this, and it can't just be about finger-pointing at people who are very worried about a genocide.